Good morning or good evening to you. Good morning to us. Tashidale. And I have two goals for this, or we have two goals for this first session today. The first is, as I mentioned yesterday, we want to introduce to you the next phase of the research training program. And then we'd like to finish up with some more discussion of causality and some of the things in research projects that enhance and or limit our ability to establish causality. So just as a reminder, there are three main phases of this intensive research training program. So the first phase is what we're in now, and we're kind of completing this first phase. And some of the things that we've tried to do during this first phase include the following. So first, we've really tried to introduce and discuss what we would call scientific consciousness. And this involves particular methods to examine the relationship between variables and to examine questions. And different types of ways of collecting data, for example, qualitative versus quantitative or descriptive versus experimental. And also just the general mindset of science, that science is not so much a particular thing, but rather a particular way of investigating reality. And that the answer to a particular question in science merely becomes the stimulator of the next question, that it's an ongoing process. And we discussed how science and Buddhism have many similarities, albeit some differences, but that they are that science in particular can really learn from the first person investigative methods of Buddhism.
Timothy, any Tsering dan anchu ni parola ya tembe ki cha tam tembe cha yores tinen el habar to Tsering baina Tsering ki chone she baina ani nanchu ki na ne ta kansa tampu ki simji ki ji ta kansa tampu ki simji ta na nyamnyong ki ji shisha chi warwa data ne Tsering la ya la chama bolen dos.
We also discussed methods to investigate the brain using cognitive neuroscience.
Shendang azu kare de shije ore sendang azu nginzun wangsa Tsering talun peche tang de ta lai pa la ya tokse kan do chi yo patian de shije yes.
And you're currently working on your own project with support from a graduate research teacher, from support from us, but really getting the experience of implementing a project.
Ta tanda in bana chezu ta ngatsu to na tini gigen de chezu to la ya ane chu Tsering gigen kusu ge chilam tung go la ya ane chezu su mo ne ro tinsang mo ne ane chu data drive is what that nginzong wa Tsering tan drive dan data drive ge takshe simji chi chezu mo ne ane chu kar su ta tong ngi su ngi ne nyamnyong ngi su sa de ta du ku yores.
And we've also introduced to you some methods for working with and analyzing and organizing your data.
Ta tim seping asu kari ngutro chi yosena ane karso ta chetsula tramtu chi raba te la ya ane ko driya kod kanda do chi ore yeship kanda do chi ore te ta ke thabla yang khashi ngutro chi yes.
So the second phase of the research training project, which will begin kind of, I guess, next year, is to do continued training in cognitive neuroscience.
Ta nga su te ge shimji jonda te ge ramba ni ba te ta te lo jima mat ngo tsigro te mat ti gro te kapsi bana so te angpo te nga su nginzong wang za Tsering ge jonda te mat ge yes.
And also provide opportunities for training in other topics of science and or methods.
Timothy ni shenda nga su Tsering ki kasu gore ta jushi shen la ya tokse che ta ina ya jushi shen ting woto che ta kusu shimji che gi tamen tena woto che yes.
In the spirit of learning through doing, also doing another research project with a bit more independence.
Ta shenda de kasu gore ta nga su ge jongder che wala tene de ta ta chi lobjon che che warwa tindan dawo ge ta chu ti shi sha be gune ne maung wala yang chi tis chi rawo tan dem be gi ne tokse shimji che gi la che tinda yin trains.
And then also then learning more about how to manage data analysis and techniques like that.
Shenda Tranto data ane kanda do chi nyat so chi go ye mero ati so kudi kanda do chi ye me yiship tang dir kanda do chi ye me data yang muto chi yes.
And then later on, again, we'll focus on a deeper investigation of cognitive neuroscience.
Ta tigi che la yang aso ge tanda nginzong wang sa Tsering tang dewe ge jonda data pe te ting chi sabla tang ting sa po la yang aso ta yes.
And or broadening to other research topics.
Timothy ane chi yang to se shimji ge ju shi shenba ge na la yang ju shi ja chi che tang yes.
And then really giving you the opportunity to develop your own independent research projects and investigating questions that you want to investigate and carrying those projects through to completion.
Da Timothy ane che chula susu ngone rawan tang tembi ngone susu gi ger ngone skor ta susu ngone susu tro kare chila len tani tu du se ge ane tro tinda se shimji ki chi charmgo tinda chi de susu ngone ne tu takshe shimji ke method chi druya ge ane ko ka tinda trains.
So what I want to do next is provide just a summary of some of the major topic points that we discussed during this last 10 days or so.
Ta tanda de che la yang asun de we ta nyama chi skina la yang asu ge jushi kare ji ko la ya ane chi moto chi yue me gi chi nonten de chi moto chi yes.
Because what we'd like to do then is take some of these topic points and think of a research project that we could do collaboratively together over this next year before next year's winter research training program in next December.
that the Mutuchi one who Junsen Korean system Balaya, and the Nangatsu Joshin data like any data, Joshin data, Shisha data, ne lojima Gunkachi the Junina Telingaso, and the Shimjika Sabjon Gumatsu Parolaya, Natsugeni, Nyamriguni, and it Toshimji Karakarichi, Joyo Meticolaya, and it is Samlutan Anticola Tagians.
So you'll recall that one of the themes that we really focused on in this first phase of the research training program is emotion.
Tanga tsuge ju simjiki sabjung ta rumba tampun de nane chi nantun tsu de ane tampu du samlu tanda nga tsuge de imbatang duas samyung ko imbatang duas.
And we introduced to you the fact that you could think of the brain's involvement in emotion involving three kind of pillars or three systems.
Hanta nga tsu lepa wa lepa samyung ten rewi ginal tele chelin don stambalaya ani nga tsu ge koge ta chi malak sim tang yana nga tsu kawa sim la ya karso ta chi shuchin tige yopa ta nyamre kana chi yopa nga tsu thongu yores.
The first system or pillar really involves brain systems that are involved in processing threats or defensive behaviors.
That tamputi kare system balaya, ta kawa tamputi kare system balaya, ngasuga lepe ginanga malarwa, ti ni ngasula karsugurita, chiga shena ta ngantal happy capacity, tisu kanda do chi samluna na chigu yometa, and so ti tan tini ngasu di capsu so di segura, susulaya, songcho chiage, chiga. The
second brain system is involved in kind of facilitating or driving rewards and pleasure and approach or behaviors to pursue rewards.
Ta nipati kare system bala ngasuga dirwata delaya chikta nyepi mala sigwarwati yate ngaso karsugreta chaga ngaso lepi nane chik thobia ta chik tona ta tena do chik chaga ngeba thoya gicheta ane telaya chik sampi nane chik karsugreta lepi nane ngamya sigwarwati gi chola ya chawa chinyi ge lepi mala tres.
And we introduced you to brain systems like the amygdala and the ventral striatum.
Lepig mala tanda kamsi leshu tundunchil henshin tawi lepig mala kashichi motrichivis.
And we discussed how the amygdala is a brain region that very much facilitates defensive posturing or kind of negative emotions like fear or threat.
Kamsi leshu imbayna kamsi leshu tirwa ani chiga ngasuga zuputi kasugre. Chiga songchu tang devi jawa dribi kaps ane ko lika chigi yo patang shenda imbayna ngasuge kasugre ta samyung nani tu gi tich warata shena ta ane chiga ngantra chiwi kaps gi chinywa chiwarwa samyung ti ane ko gnani kasugre ta ti lepi nani ta ko jurum ti ise chigi yo pa ge lepi chachi res kamsi leshude.
And the ventral striatum is a region of the brain that really facilitates kind of motivation and positive emotions and pursuing rewards and goals in the environment.
Ta dunchigil hashungi di imbayna karresana ngasu chiga ta samyung dang ne yawi chochigo wa ta teta ani ko ise che ta tane ngasula karsugure tane tanda chiga nyepa sugura chaga tane do raya la ya chiga tapshi ta ta ti shenda ngasuge ta misigana ko dinado chi gundu sa chi zanshok ko riwata rindin tam jewigi ani chelindo sati ani dichlansion teres.
And we didn't have a lot of time to discuss this, but another pillar of the brain's emotional system are parts of the brain that help us manage or regulate our emotions and kind of think about them in pursuing long-term rewards and long-term goals.
And they somebody also show and the show jara yoma restika na ngasugale pignanirwa to ta jun rambu rin la rwa jun rambu ran la ya ne lai pala ya chi tang zin chi ya ta chi ta phujin rambu ge dewa ta ane chi jaga te ra ya la ya le pignang ni chi tang zin chi ni chi mala chi ro teres.
And this really centers on the prefrontal cortex, which is this piece of tissue right behind our foreheads.
Te iya kala na nga suge lepa ge ta chi dungal la shungi nalo te yores ta nga su thopa ge chi papa wala yo chi ge chachi deres.
Which we can think of as kind of a place where thoughts and emotion converge in the brain.
Ta te nga su kana ro chi la samlu tang na digre se na nga su ge ka su ge ta samshi tang samnyo te sama ani chi dusa ge lepa ge chachi chi la samlu tang na digres.
And then we also learned how there's growing evidence that the brain is changeable, and techniques like meditation can really alter the structure and function of the brain in positive ways.
Te mesebi tinsa nga su kari ha kutku res na lepa la Gerardo yo pata ani ku ge chi gomdre ta wi ge thablan la tinde de te lepi ki chele tang lepi ki chakola ya Gerardo tang yo pate nga su tanda ha ku yo res.
And the view here is that well-being and happiness is really a skill that, if practiced, can lead to measurable and sustained changes in brain function and structure.
Ta tanda de na ne ku nang tun chode kar re se sta bala ya ani kar su gre tanda nga su ge chi ge piche ta ani ditha bu ki chaya ge chi ro o te ge thalban te ta ani ku ge nga su ge ta chi Jint kia ta yerje tang kia ka ta lakses na digdo ina che chimba karsu yimba ti ngotoche ne teta ko rem shinta ko jondar chi de ta yerje tang yu ge ne ta chimba ti ngotoche res.
Now, in addition to discussing the topic of emotion, we also discussed the topic of sleep.
Ta tanda samyon tan drevi thomsen ti ngotoche ga la ya nga su ga ni tan drevi thomsen ngotoche yes.
And so the real theme of this first portion of the research training program is on the convergence between emotion and sleep. And so we were fortunate to have Ken Paller give us a talk on sleep and EEG, which is, as you know, a method that we can use for studying human brain activity.
This tambala ya again can follow la pede tinga sula ni ta ani electric lower ko la ya ni lanchen no tinga suge chikarza so di insangudo sti na sing tanda di jo la tene de ani nga suge taben de to pechu ta de ani ni ko la ya ani to se shinji chit ko res.
And so Ken presented some basics of how the brain can be measured using EEG, and the idea that we can measure electromagnetic output from the brain in a very reliable and systematic manner.
Tanda again can like natula ya karsubulana let's go load on David chetangi amangzi shisha ane ko kasio gonu ngotochi kanshila tiki gala ane ngaso ge lepi nang le chonwe ge chiga lab chiwarwa o teta ane ko setan dembata ko dingzitan dembe gane senjet ko yopegi ne tanto ngotochi res.
Ken then showed us that there's a very specific organizational structure to sleep, that sleep's not random, but that we travel through different phases of sleep, and that these different phases of sleep are measurable using EEG.
Now, that can like a tig gala ya shenda karichore seranga chuge niki ramba ti ko karsuver the dinzik tandamba koren tandamba chimba tan rimba teta ane ko ngime maimba ro ngime maimba chikanjo manjo shever tiro maimba ko dinzik tandamba koren tandamba imba ta ane teta ro chi dinzik tandamba koren tandamba anyela ya rimba mampo yopa ge nibapte ane ngasoge let's go lorge tablet tipishi tan teta ko senjet ko yopa tingutu chires.
Ken then discussed some of his work on targeted memory reactivation, which is a method that enhances people's memories of particular events or particular topics while they're sleeping.
Ta mi chi ani khupa imba na ani khupi never ti pecho ta de ta mi te ge ani ko ta karsu chawa ta yang na chong ngi chen ta de ge chamba ti 아니 그 템부즈야 당 양나 치튼치 태기 지금 되게 텔라야 슈진트에 지거와 어떻게 거기에 양 내던 지금 되시죠요레스
and Ken discussed how our knowledge of the phases of sleep can help us to best understand when to apply certain stimuli when people are sleeping in order to help them consolidate memories.
다 때문에 현장에서 트램바티 지금 사튼즈에 제대로 트램바티 템부즈에 제대로 아니 아니게 네버 관계치가 값을 아니 바르텔라야 지금 아니 네버 관계치가 값을 트램바티 탄데비게 네 쿠친 트바이나 네 트램바티 지금 템부즈에라 팽기요메기 니탄 템모트지오레스.
And finally, finally Ken discussed some very interesting work on lucid dreaming. Which is a experience in which somebody is aware that they're dreaming.
다 현대가 저 가서 그래. 땅위 말람기 니탄데 값이 심지고 고랑 못했죠. 레스타 땅위 말람사나 데 값이 저거데 아니 말람테 말람민 바수수가 말람 메진바기 니탄데 하고 이거 말람지 와 어떻게 고랑 못했죠. 레스.
And rather remarkably, Ken, using EEG has found a method to actually communicate with people when they're in actual lucid dream.
다 단다기 니 현대지라야 양 sambuji 가르쳐 오래서나 단다 단다가 저게 그 말람 땅위에 말람 메신비 값을 말람 맨컴테 단 냠들어와 아니 그 지 가서 그러다 개체시에서 그러다 발서 그러다 전에 지역에 달면 지금 생이 좀 요래서.
And we discussed how this method might have some very interesting connections or applications to dream yoga and other techniques used in Buddhist practices. During sleep.
다 단다기 디 타부기 아니 지금 답는데 아니 다 남비기 지금 냠len치 땅 하퍼도 단다가 수가 니케네 주서 거로 디 콜라야 아니 지금 배추타요 그래 삼기스.
We also discussed some methods for studying human brain activity and function and structure.
다 현대에 가서 미기 레바기 제레다 다 제고다 되네 그 괴바다 아니 차고다 되네 그게 접당 지거라다 레피나나 자와 간으로 지금 요메기 데이터 아니 지금 체제기 답변 영어도 지스.
As a reminder, the three techniques that we discussed were structural MRI, functional MRI, and EEG.
nga suge ngutu chijuge thalun samde roa nga suge tangpotelaya ni chakoge nyamde parlanche nyoatelaya ani jeli nyamde parlanche sambate nga suge teres let's lores.
And we particularly focused on EEG, and we're still working on getting these EEG systems to you in India. They should be hopefully arriving soon.
단다 가서 무세기 원에 단다 렛츠기 론제기 탈런 지거라 EEG 세티 콜라야 가서 모토 시치어지 예스 아니 단다 디 EEG기 단다 렛츠기 론제기 탈런 요지고 말라데는 가서 봐 자갈라 프레셔 예스 아니 간 존조 팔라 엔조베로지 예스.
And James Glazer provided a presentation showing that how we can use these EEG systems to measure brain activity, alertness, attention, as well as the different stages of sleep that Ken introduced us to.
Again, James 아니 단다기 EEG system 서고라다 let's lonje 유치디 배치당 데데 아니 가수게 레피기 나니 최고 간다로 지르고도 아니 가수가 지금 가수 정보 닌도면도게 네탄테다 아니 가수게 지 attention system 발아야 루치 지금 택도무도 사이고라 루 고토나 택도무도 세테다 아니 네겐 캔라게 데시자주게 가수게 니게름바 mampuch거와 어때다 아니 지금 딱시지와 단테다게 아니 고게 그래서 디기 값이기 니탄테 천지지기 요바데 아니 제임스 같은 요레스.
And you'll recall that this is a printout of James's brain activity as he's going from being awake to slowly falling asleep to now being in deep sleep, as you can see down here.
다 지수 트람바스요나디 제임스 코랑게와 아니 니쿠바 담보텔라야 아니 지가 니 세바제 tene ni kubache tene bakore ni kuninga so ni tupu kupigi 값 아니 단다 렛츠고 lonje 탈은 디기 유치티 페치 땅데 땅 총비기 아니 그 렛츠고 로르기 지금 전된 수거다 거기 비천지 임바데 제주 라무토지오레스.
And we also discussed other methods that we can use and that we hopefully will be able to use to study some of the physiology of the body as well as the physiology of the brain during sleep.
하다 현대 임바나야 현대가 거기 유치 같이 지거레스다 가서 가리로 지게스나 유치 데이터 배치 당대데 아니 지금 리포기 네법지오라 리포기 네컴 네법당 아니 지금 레피기 네법다 아니 지금 체제 투에기로 지게스.
And these are the aura rings that Ken mentioned. Now, in addition to measuring the brain and also the brain during wakefulness or sleep, there's other things that these techniques like the muse and the aura ring can measure.
dela ya muse de teredo I jojung gula konatero or rinse de tskoterwa ten shage nga suga le pigi chekotan ni anigi ni about the jet ka samay ba ni shenda tinang jet ka de yores.
So these techniques are able to measure the metrics of the heart, like the heart rate variability, and other things like that.
다 현대 가르치 그 천jet 그래서나 닝기 콜라야 닝기 딩세 주로 닝기 딩세티 가르바티 천jet 그래 팀 세비 닝기 딩세 바로라야 양코 닝기 딩세라야 챕터 간의 로진 로고도 세주로 대다 천jet 그래서.
They're able to measure physiology associated with the breath, including how frequently we were breathing and also the amount of oxygen in our blood system.
아니 현대때 가서 어떤 레비게 네법대한 대시 고게 천jet 그래서 디갑스 가리레서는 가서 우티 탐 망로라 당도서 거라다 까마치나 카치치나 틀에 탐 까마치나 탐 망로라 판도세 데이터 니 현대 바나 양코 우탕탄 레레라야 고나라야 가서 솔랑 망로레두세 저로 데리게 네법대한 천jet 그래서.
And also measure movement associated with either sleep or just our general activity.
Ken,
anything I'm missing? Okay. So what we'd like to propose to you is that, what we'd like to propose to you is that between now and next December, when we begin phase 2 of the research training program, is that we take some of the tools that we've introduced you to and start to do a collaborative research project on the science of emotion, well-being, sleep, and or meditation.
semnyonta lepata data la jevege ane thapsu khashi ngoto chiore ane yuchi khashi ngoto chi ti chung yorwa o data de ane tanda ngacho ta nimachi na zodo gore data ane lo jema la ya ko ramba nywa ting go matsik paro ge chuti ren la ya ane ngacho nyamre ngone ro nyamre ge takshi simji chi thage ane chi kasu teachers ne digre ruas ne tin dong ge sta chi takshi simji te ya 아니 가서 삼년당 양나 디탑당 대비게 차리당 양나 인니당 대비 차리가 양나 가서 검당로와 검드당 대비게 차리다 단데 트샤주 데이터당 대비 차리 데이터 강라야 아니 가서 냠르 군이 아니 타블렌당 유치데이터 배치당 데이터 냠르게 다시 심지지 지야게 다 리와당 양나 되게 제시된 동비에스.
And so this is a kind of an image that captures some of the major themes that we discussed. So emotion, sleep, and various forms of meditation.
Tandadela first to first take the Gansutanda Moto Chivi, Jushik, some chat, Joshi Totsaya Pertin Resta, Chiki Gala, Samuel, Ramdataya, and Yodelaya, and also Nick Penny, and Shambatelaya, and also Gomdrip, Gondram, Gomdrig number Damda, Yam Lanchi, you Pertin Res.
So as we think about this collaborative research project that we could do together over this next year, here are some of the methods that we have available to ourselves to work with.
tanga suge ni lu chikrin la ya nyamdru nguni deta kola ya ni takshe shimji nyamdru nguni cheba ina ani nga chula ya ani chiga karsubrita nga chula ya yue pagi ta tablens na degree chachinti deta res.
So one is we'll have the Muse EEG system.
Chikala na nga chula tanda muse sagi tanda lechig lonje gi yuchich to deres.
And again, we have 12 of these that are currently being shipped to the Meditation and Science Center at Drepung. And there's also discussions of either via grants or other mechanisms getting these EEG systems to the other monasteries and nunneries, Sarah May, Sarah J, etc.
Ta tanda imbana dina do tanda lechig lonje gi yuchi theda do chonji chi tanda depolo seleng gi sari tene khala du sprusha yores. Ni ti gala ya shenda bana ko tsering din sin shenda ta sira che tan sira me ta ani chi ani gomba la so pa gi chi gomba mam tatsing gi gomba gonde khala ya ani ti ani ta chi nyu ya tan khoto che che to yana ko chi karsu da ngu gi ta grand se ro ngu ti nang ngu ti te go me ta yana tablen shenda kan do chi pechu tang go me ti ko la ya ta da la ya ne chi tu chi tan chi simbares.
Well, we also might have other measures to study physiology and movements, including the aura rings or actigraphy or other measures.
Na shenen ba na ya tanda de la chi aura gi tsu ko sa sto de de nga tsu tsu de de ba lu bu ngo che ta ani lung khang ko ne ba bu dam da chen je chi ro de ta ani shen da ya jangu ge tok chi sa chi ro lu bu ngo che ta pe che ta ngo che gi ne ba de tok se che ge chi chi ro o de ta ya chi pa le thu pa che gi thap chi tang go res.
Another technique that we consider is that we could consider is something that we haven't discussed that much yet, but that I want to introduce you to.
Ta shenda gi thablan chi kar yo res na tanda patang asun de ngoto chi chi mes ta tanda rang ngoto chi gi yes.
So we discussed how inflammation can be measured in the blood, and that inflammation is something that is really adaptive in the short term, but that when chronic can be associated with a lot of health problems.
Ta shenda jinga su kar kolan de shi jaw res na ani chi thag la ta se chawla tene de ta ani thana la yin kha gi ran jin tenga su ge chen je thu bi bi ngo jinga chu ngo chi yes. Ta yin kha te ko ta chi tu thong thong in ba na ta koron la jira te tin ju te chin ding do chi yo res in ba na ya yin kha te ju rong pu la ne pa in ba na ma chu la thot ten tan de wi kang ma pu chi ran jing chen res.
And inflammation is a coordinated response produced by the immune system to help you fight off things in your body or heal from wounds.
Ta nga su ge nyen kha se ti kar re se na nga su zu pu ge nen go ma la ge ro nen go ma la ge zu pu na la yo pi ge ta chi cholong ne ong bi ngi bo ta ani na cha chi ni ti na do la ya ani chi ko gok song chi ya ta pa la go go chi ge nam ba la ten de ton chong wi ge ani ni chi res.
And you can measure inflammation through the blood.
Ta tanda ge nyen kha se te nga su tha ju chi ta chi chi res.
And this is a technique that was developed by Carol Worthman, who is associated with ETSI.
Tanda di ane ko ge taktab di rwa ane ko chi zunyi di sre se na nga so te la emory-tibet sanri lerem na la ya ane ngomal hupchan na gen Carol Worthman la res.
And this involves just getting a little bit of blood on each of these various kind of circles here. And it's not painful. And what's nice is that these blood spot techniques can, basically are very good for collecting blood out in the field.
Tanda de la ya ko tha ni tanda de la go na tel chi do ga o de res de ba na chitang ya ko na su chimbu thra do tai tena mares ane ko tha de tus land ta nga su tha gi ta de piche se gro de sample de dus de chel pen gores thapar de ba na ko kar so ta ta se shin ri chi sa sani sathula so de ane ko mi sa de dus tha ge piche de dus la ya ane ko tab de uta pen to chimbu yores.
So this would allow us to not only examine the relationship between emotion, sleep, and meditation in the brain, but we could also look at the relationship between these and certain physical metrics of health associated with the heart or the immune system.
And they got reason and so which Samuel Tan Yetan and it that lepaton Davis agora they thought that David and Nathan Canada Yala Toxic at Semember, one as Zupu and Zupu de Casanga so and Ninta any chata, the name so Nengo Mala Tan David and Nathan Tia Hakuela Penturis.
Now, in addition to these physiology measures, we also have qualitative techniques and interview techniques that we discussed.
That data or they are to change egg and it on data Gala Shanda Carrier system, Balanga to position Jitan Devi, Nichi Chandrichi or taking your race.
As well as quantitative techniques from surveys where we can measure the amount of time that they're sleeping or people's emotions or various things like that, similar to what we've been working on the last few weeks or the last 10 days.
That's what David in around like any so good obsession you do, and so which Mabuchi or what they on David, any cars with the Migi Samuel Tandreva, Nitan David, or La Yang Atsugi, Tambort on David, Tam to the Rich or what they tie. Natsu Chechu the Troatan, the Tanlan Jagachiatan, Tenedo, which you are big tablet your race.
Now we know you're very busy with your Buddhist studies and your Geshe training and your activities at the monasteries and nunneries.
That Natsu Karihaku, Senechu, Susu, Gumbalaya, Susugi, Nichishok, Jontan, and Geshe, La Pegi, Stella Traditan, Nishenda Yanko, Susu Sanila. Nachu Gondita Sankala ya ane Lika Mampu Nala ya Nich Telato Yopangato Haku, yes.
And we really appreciate you taking these 12 days to work with us during this winter training program.
Ane Inayanda Chitu Nima Junichi la ya Chitu Muxeg Chet Dunde in Tandanga Supo Duchishin Bage ane Shimjiki Subjonte la Yanzushi Alai to Chishains.
And so we want to make sure that any research project that we collaborate on over this coming year is exciting, but also doesn't add stress to your already busy schedules.
And you could do no you patan, you Nasuke, a Kasuke, Dunya two again, you patent a doshi in Bazua Tapchitana, Yinea, Chesulaya, Chikanda, Tewa shoe, or the thing out the Layanko, and then she Chikasu, that Tevi Ranjan, the Tepa Kano Majiagi, never Chinjuala, Tashtangis.
And so what we would envision to start off is, maybe starting in January or February is starting to train, those who are interested in using the EEG system or the aura system to get you familiar with how to collect data from the brain using these various techniques.
Chichina the tamponing goods, Chichina Yachida Nibaning goods, the Tandagi Yuchi data, and a petron de Tansimji Chinia, like Tuna, Unigi, Chetsulane. Those so as that data can special tango you met and data pechutan data tranto de and what's going to part on the junior tranto can just druchi you may get any jonder gis
and so maybe we would do 1.5 hour session in January, 1.5 hour session in February. So this wouldn't be a big time commitment, but it would allow you to start to get trained in these techniques so you could collect data on your own brains.
Tanga suchida tampo tanga chida nibari susu na la ro chida cheka do chila nga su yuchin data pechu tanga yage ani chi pechu tangtap kana ro chi mingi chi sabant na against that de chigin bana chi su shu chi pechu tangwa ta su shu chi sa do ya tinai ne tang baresta de simba imbana ani yuchi de pechu tanga de ro yuchi de ta pechu tanga de chechu susu ge le pina ne yang ko Karso Google dati kandas to do loda de kana rochi do sete and Google sent it but not any time to the rich it.
And at the same time, we would start to think of a research question that would be exciting to examine data on over this next year, so that we can start to collect data on some of the topics that might interest you with respect to emotion, sleep, or meditation.
Shinda karisena tanda katsuge di ngutre chiwa tang lepi gi nangi tachi loda tang drebi tangtu dru chiwa tang nyam tu ani ya data tang drebi gi ani chiga shimji ke jawa kare chindu len kandan ro chi jasare se choro data tang ani data dele tang katsuge chi semyong tang ni tang ani lepa tang kutsu drebi gi thela ya we
would work closely with the graduate science teachers so that there would be support on the ground at the monasteries and nunneries.
Dansa khala ya Tsering gigin yorwa Tsering gigin kusu tang nyam to ani nyamrig gane de drag tachi tang yes.
And I think I have all the graduate science teachers, and then I also have Tashi Lamo and Dandu Buangmo here who are working at the Nusslock Monastery.
That dinala ya ni Tsering gigin sama tsiya pera yes ne degan ya ani tanda Nusslock gi Tsering dinsan la lekachini tashlamula tang tando amulan sha kana yes.
Us faculty also would work closely with you on these projects over this year so that this is really a collaborative research project.
Maybe
And in addition, there would be an opportunity for some of you to actually come to Northwestern and work with me and Ken to get deeper training in cognitive neuroscience techniques like EEG and really start to get more hands-on with these methods.
Northwestern to pay the and wants a taxi tabin tanda let's go longe to teach you or data nani a new special data nyamyon swag kashichila to grace.
And so we've talked with Geshe-Lobsang about having a few of you coming over from India maybe next summer or the summer after for a few months, maybe, or maybe a month, in training with Ken and me on these techniques for studying the human brain.
Ani kashichi dus ngasul haptana yong de tangen ken la tangaran nyamta ani ko ge takshe khane ani let's go longe ge yuchi tu peche tan de tan lepa tan devi de ta senje la ya jong de che ge nebati kola ne gishi lobson la tan nyamta dus kamochon yes.
And so the goal here would be to identify 4 or 5 people, 4 or 5 of you who are interested in really taking the lead in kind of learning some of these techniques, and then you could become a trainer or teacher of other individuals at the monasteries and nunneries who are interested in learning these techniques.
Ani yanche susu gonde tasan khala yopi ani chi tazunda tsari lhubin chini kusola ya jondar treya chigoro mawala jondar treya o dinedo chi muisin yes.
Now it takes a long time to learn really how to use these techniques or do science, and using neuroscience methods, but we really see this as the beginning of a long-term conversation. As you can as I've mentioned, His Holiness calls this the 100-year project. So this is really setting the foundation for a long-term collaboration between all of us.
다 지금 만나 단다 dinda다오게 지금 다 유치대 당 탑런대 당 데콜라야 종다 지 등 서포트야 되다 지금 바이나 준롱포 슈춘 고야기 된다레스 임바이나야 단다게 대가서 단다 두시게 요바데 아니 걸서 그래 다 리시테기 지 운즈 잠지레스 나델라야 네 군둥기 가르송 거레스나 군둥기 지금 단다게 지금 세르기 레처데 아무래도 po 세르 단레베기 레처데 임바이나 코 로자게 레시지라 양근지 지금 예송요 레스텐스 담발아야 아니 대가서 걸서 그래다 지금 남베게 다 냠는 진에 당 산득 바로라야 냠저기 지 덕시 심지지야 되게 아니 지 운주 그것도 운주 잠심베게 아니 운전도 지기 예스.
Now, part of a collaboration is sharing ideas with each others.
다 단다 냠드스가 냠레기 자시치가레스 담발아야 반승 바로라야 아니 지 삼루지리지 드레스.
And learning from each other's ideas.
삼루 지리치면서 아니 반승 바로라야 야 시샤티 방코질레지 드레스.
Historically, a lot of this is involved kind of academic scientists saying, all right, we want to study this part of meditation, or we want to investigate, you know, your brains or various things like that.
다 chitang logic rosola te bai bai na chitang kana do chiore sana nga so stilo honya tan do stilo ngap tan do yo chu ge takshe shinju pa ko chu ge ale nga su ge ani che chu ge chi ge gon ren yalan de tan de la takshe shinju du do che chu ge chi ge chi ta che bu tan chi ge le tan yo ron de tan de la takshe chi ge chi du do se ge ni tan tin chi cha yo res.
But I think we're at an exciting point in this conversation where we really want to kind of have this be more collaborative and really hear from you about what you think are important topics to investigate in human psychology or biology or, you know, neuroscience, and really kind of have you guide us on questions that you think are important to examine.
당 이삼세 만나 가서 냠리 되게 지가 니 지가 뒤쳐마서나 하정 야부지라 해도 상고도 스타디 가르친 라바이나 단다이 텔라야 아니 제충원에 지가 니보 간다도 지임바이 니탄 간다도 지임바타 지가 가서 그랬다 tak시 심지기 지야기 좋아도 바타 니바 디나로 지라 tak시 지네 야고도 세기 공출동야 지거와 어떻게 되다 가서 냠즈거니 지야기 뜻이 야고질 라도 상고도 세충원에 바이나야 지가서 그랬다 tak시 심지기 지야기 조시 카테야 지가 가서 미기 상칸이 바래 아니 징위 차이르레 아니 왕사 차이르라 소파간라 아니 지금 데이터 데라야 가서 뭐네 바이나 네 지 tak시 제바이나 가서 최충원이다 지금 긴든방원이 안에 네탕 데라야 아니 세르크 tak시 데이터 데치바이나 야고요서레스 최충원에 바야 지가서 드론 도야 땅 데라야 그 삼천 도야 땅 도시에 땅 아주 그 냠르 땅 아니 지금 냠리 지역에 네버때 지금 컨센치 소당에게 네버질 해도 상도스.
And so what we'd like to do now is have you with your groups start to discuss some topics that you'd be interested in investigating based on some of the ideas and techniques that you learned during this past research training program.
하다 단다 데베기니마 카시나텔레 체속에 아주 종합 대주게 아니 지 탑lâm 지 시샤티다 시샤데데 아니 마오발라야 아니 체소 가리 콜라야 tak시 심지 진이 두두 세 저와 되게 조시티 콜라 체소 아니 루커나테 고셔제데 지로지스.
Okay, you were kind of digitizing there a little bit, Dawa. Did others hear that, Nicole? Did you hear that, or?
I did hear it, but it was a little.
Okay, just let me know if it's my internet or Dawa's. We'll kind of play all that. So what we'd like is first we'd like with your groups at your table is for each person in the group to go around and just briefly say to each other, what's a topic area that interests you on some of the themes that we just provided an overview of? Topic area that interests you. Dawa, are you there?
It's frozen now.
Oh, Dawa's frozen, or am I frozen, or Dawa?
Yes.
Oh,
Frozen.
Hassan, we're about to have everybody work in their groups. So can you?
Could you
just
maybe translate,
for
Hassan?
Robin?
야, 차상 그룹 나나 소수 그룹 나몰라 아니 조두치니라 아니 다 주시 단다 코란기 단다 지 로컬말라 나저기 냠시 지역이 주시 가리가나 야고도라 디가노 그룹 나나 조두치로 치스 just that like they have to go work in the group to discuss about the topics they want to research.
So what we'd like is that for each member of the group, just to very briefly go through and say what's a topic area that interests them, just so that everyone in the group has an opportunity to express what interests them. And then there's another part that I want to discuss, but that's the first part.
Okay. 그룹 나라 여기와 미 모레레 치니라 미 레레 치니 소소기 냠시 가리치도요. 니가나 아니 소소 그룹 나라 파슈고도 안디 차상기 년고 war다 차상기 레레 치니 슈고 war래. Yes.
And then the second thing is we'd like each table, each group to then say, all right, let's kind of come up with one topic area that really interests us as a table based on all the input that we've received from the method, from each individual person.
당아주 루가 레레 나올라다 차상기 레레 슈체그 와소소기 섬주다 직냠시 지세기 주시디 야고도스다니라 다 캐난스 루가 디기 냠도 도도치니라 안 주시 디 당아주 직다 더버치셔다 다 작셔레 도스다니 다디 아니 캐난스 담고고도샤.
And then we'd like each table to briefly present to us and to the whole group what the topic is that they think would be interesting to examine, what method they would use to investigate that, and whether they have any hypothesis about what they would predict.
아니 단다다 캐난스 루가 레레기다 단다 조두치니 주시지가나 바구로와 안 주시디 아니 캐난스 미치기 아니야 주시디가나 다 튼디주 슈고고도 주시 가리임에 아니 디기 다 주시디가나 냠시 지역이 탑lâm 가리 표시당한 이메체 안디네 중나 소샤 가리샤기에메 디강자지야 슈고고도.
So we'll take the next 10 minutes and for each group to go through and just briefly, oh, Nicole, you said 5 minutes?
I think 15 minutes.
15, okay. The next 15 minutes for each group to go through and come up with an idea that group thinks is an interesting topic, a method that they would use to investigate that topic, and if they have any hypotheses. Nicole, do you think 15 minutes is long enough?
Yes.
Okay, 15 minutes.
Okay.
So you said 15 minutes, right?
15.
Sorry, I'm back on my laptop. My PC just
No
shut
worries.
down itself. Kama chunga garang la, kama chunga garang la ya ni record chichu na la ya Twitter na de ten. Jeshi kari chiko la ya takshe chini tu sirwa. Ani jeshi te ani takshe che la ya ani tablan kari pechu tangi be sirwa. Ani ti ngala chichu chesha te kari inse te ta ani chiga Twitter chiro chis kama chunga garing la.
Is that clear?
Sabu chasa.
소차.
Naso sabu chasa na da Twitter na ro na.
Do you think just go like group 1 through 9, Nicole, or should we?
So
Whatever group wants
I'll
to.
put your speaker back.
Okay.
Yeah, and go backwards instead of forwards this time.
Yeah, maybe go backwards. Exactly.
Yeah, everybody can hear you.
Okay. So we'd like to hear from each of you, each group, as to what topic interests you, what method you would use to study it, and if you have a hypothesis. Instead of going like we typically go, let's start with group 9.
Aha, ta tanda ta rukha susungone ani checho ju simji jinye tuju ge ani joshi kari chi chong so swa ni joshi te la ya simji che la ya ani tablan kari pechu tangi bes ro ani te la ya ti gi drebe ani chesha kari chi sha gi bes ti ta ani dus rukha re ngono ngotro chiro chis ani namjin ta mando tanda rukha guban ne gutsgins.
So please pick one person from each group
Robin.
to just give a brief
Most
presentation.
of them are still busy actually discussing.
Oh.
So let me grab
Okay.
their attention first. Yasia, that is Yasia. That discussion is. Yeah, you can go ahead. Hello.
So we'll start with group 9.
Ruka gonu gutsugi insa.
Group 9.
Hello. Can you hear me, Vin and Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. And Tashtele, yeah, we are group 9. So actually, yeah, we have about like 4 or 5 topics. But then, yeah, finally we decided on one topic. And our research topic, it says that actually, yeah, there's a saying that early to bed, early to rise. So our topic is that, does sleeping late in monastics, especially like since most of the monks and nuns, they go to bed late, right? Because of their like studies and intensive debates. So they sleep probably like after 11 or at midnight. So does sleeping late in monastics affects the health and immune system? Yeah, so that's the topic. And the methods we would like to use is, we'll make a survey questions, and then we'll take survey questions from the monastics who sleeps late, and also like we'll make separate set of survey questions to the monastics who sleeps early. Yeah, and then we'd like to make a distinction, and would like to know, and also like if most of the monastics are sleeping late, then we might want to put the questions to the lay people around Mongot area. So we'd like to know what is the difference? What is the difference between like their sleeping habits and if there's any effects. And then in our methods, we'd like to use Muse or EEG. So when it arrives or when we get training, and then we'd like to check the quality of sleep, both in the set of groups. So so in the monastics who are sleeping late, we'd like to use EEG and check the quality of sleep, and also to other group, or you can say like the control group who goes to sleep early, we'd like to use EEG and then check the quality of sleep and compare the data. And also, we can use the blood spot technique to measure the inflammation, so that we'll get to know idea about like if there's any effect on immune system or health. And then finally, our hypothesis is that as goes the saying, early to bed, early to rise. So it can make us live long, right? So sleeping late affects our health and immune system. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a wonderful topic.
Group number 1 next.
Hello, Tashidale. And our group, we have a lot of topics. So finally, we choose Tonglen meditations, which we already doing this 1 weeks. So we try to figure out the relation with the Tonglen and the negative emotions like fear, anger. According to Buddhist text, that Tonglen is one of the main practice of Mahayana that can reduce negative emotions like fear, anger, and also it increase love and compassion. So we want a scientific method to show whether that is true or not. So that is our research questions. And so we didn't, our hypothesis is that Tonglen meditation can reduce negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, and depressions. This is our hypothesis. We didn't get much time to talk about the methods. So maybe we will do some control group as much as sample size in the monasteries, somebody to do the Tonglen meditation, and then we check later how they have fear and anger through using the EEG or some other measure about heart rate. And when we get angry, our body changes. So we will just figure out. We didn't completely finish the method side. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful topic. And I will say that there's been a lot of research on meditation, but not a lot of research that I'm aware of on Tonglen. And so this would be a really, I think, exciting topic.
Group number 7. 6.
만수단의 담야대 universidade ani sin용기 니라 니가 비가라 시제가르 팅레세 소디 다조 sin용노니 간소 미스카네 가르 담요레스나 아니 간소 성루나야 지어라 성루나야데 담네 디기니가 비가라 시제가르 팅스 다조 당기비 준세디 가르인스나 아니 지당네 단다 군베낭레야 베자야 보지 아니 베자 식지 못당이 아니 딘디 베자고 몸보시 베샤다야 식체다네 아니 성루나자나 딘일레네 베샤 진테네 따무투아 차야다 아니 베나 글루지던다 딘 루무투아 차야다네 무시기 니스 뉴니스니 몸보초용두스 아니 데소 아니 성루기 나자츠 제첸다고 데서 야보하고 투베이나 아니 텔레야 지탄다고 데서 준데드니 야보 중사레스 당한소 체샤 제바이나 아니 성루나자 유에바이나 아니 니에기 피카라 네체여바 아니 니 몸보 마쿠아제 아니 성루 나자지 니 몸보 마쿠아제 니마 몸보 송바이나 아니 디기 주볼네요 아니 드니제네 아니 나자 몸보 찐체용 this 드니제네 당한소 조 담게 에이전시 소 데드니지인스
알아
긴다 공소에 긴다올라
Dawa is frozen again, it seems. 아니, 덤두 되시겠다. 인지나 되시겠다.
최샤데 제초데
세샤데 딩긴다올라 세샤데 성루 나자기 킹기 아니 니에기 피카라 네바티야 니에 피카 드르로야티
Yashidadu, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You could translate.
가스콘다 기실라
Hello.
나데 가 기실라 다데
Oh yeah. Okay. So their research question is the relationship between sleep quality and some kind of a physiological disorder called sognung, but I think it will be most closely related with what you might call stress. So sleep quality and stress, particularly the background for looking into this is that they find several cases of very good scholars, unquestioned good scholars who tend to then eventually suffer physiological conditions to the point that they would not be able to sit for the annual grand Gelug examinations, etc., and also affect their study prospect in the long run. So they wanted to look into this with the hope that something could be clear on this, and this could be avoided in the coming days, in the coming years.
Are you interested in how stress impacts sleep or how sleep impacts stress?
Number two, the 심지기 저어디는데 여기 다시 해야 돼. 니기 소론을 소론께를 겐지 그랬어 다임바. 소론기 니기 그 벽을 겐지 그랬어 다임바. 근데 임바스.
만소 다야데 송루기 찐체네 니기 피칼라파 찐카르종드세 틸타이다. 송루기바이나 니기 페가 셰르노드단 홈스. 세샤데 니기 페가 셰르노야데.
Oh yeah, they're going to look into how stress is affecting the sleep quality. They very much think that their hypothesis seems to tend to the side of that stress can positively adversely affect the quality of sleep.
Group 7.
Hello, good evening. From our question pool, we got a majority on the one of the question, which is related to breathing meditation and long-term memory. So we were curious if breathing meditation, somehow impact long-term memory. And we would like to use a method of descriptive method and also EEGs to check if there is any change in the brain structure with the breathing meditation and how it changed the structure which is related to long-term memory. And we also like to use a ring because in some research, there is a relationship between how anxious person is to the memory consolidation. So we can also check the heart rate. And we will do a survey to track the difference throughout the days. Yeah. Thank you. And our hypothesis is, does breathing meditation somehow impact the long-term memory?
That's a very interesting topic, and there is some research suggesting that stress, particularly when chronic, has a negative effect on memory. And so breath meditation might be a really interesting way of counteracting that effect. Absolutely, great topic.
Tadi simjuki desi awasira tu na kona tu simju siadi ujungu ki kom jabata ani yunjin temba yurimbu temba ni koru jawata ache ani kona tu chesha siadi ani ujungu ki kom jabati ki yurimbu temba tembo nyaya ga ani keben ngure se chesha ti lambe tone ani simju siadi simju ki tapse na lo la tangi tapse peje tadanga ju sabjona lopti na se tapse kanga na
Robin or Ken, I have a quick question. Do we know if there's any impact of meditation on short-term memory?
I defer to Ken on this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean in people for whom meditation is novel? Or do you mean for experienced meditators?
Either one.
I guess there isn't probably a good answer to the question.
Okay.
But it's an interesting question.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that this could be examined depending on the amount of meditative experience a person has, how we define memory. We know that, for example, people who are depressed have reduced memory, and that may be driven in part through stress biology. So maybe in a study like this, we would actually focus on people who are struggling and need some meditative help, as opposed to people who have long-term meditative practices. Mm-hmm. But interesting topic. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
From all same as the other group, actually, we have come up with lots of topics, and finally we decided to go with the heedfulness, mindfulness, introspection practice, and the regulation of emotion. So yeah, Ten Shijin Tanyam Sung, in Tibetan it is called Ten Shijin Tanyam Sung. I think it is the most applicable spiritual practice in our day-to-day routine. And because of that, we expect this kind of practical meditation or spiritual practice has some kind of positive impact on our emotional balance. So we wanted to see these, from the scientific method and experiment, and to run study or experiment. We thought maybe we could choose some sort of quantitative survey as well as experimental study. And for the method, maybe we can use device that measures the heart rate and the fluctuation of whatever, emotional status on the brain waves level. And then maybe also we can draw some, a little bit, amount of blood to assess the stress hormone or something like that. Yes.
That sounds great. And what I also like about what you said is that a study like this could be both descriptive and experimental, that we can approach it from different methods. So I think that's very, very interesting. Yeah. And I think also you mentioned the idea of regulation, which I think is a really interesting concept. So not just emotion generation, but emotion regulation. So some really interesting ideas there. So we're kind of at break time. I think we've maybe gone through half the groups.
I think we should quickly do the other ones because they're going to be in separate classrooms after this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if we could just, maybe if each remaining group could kind of pretty quickly in just a minute or two, just let us know the main topic area, that would be great. And we'll take notes and then we'll follow up with you about the details.
Yeah, so group number Sumba.
Hello. Also di jushi di na khasa nda chegom kolai. Chura zoba joye chura. Ondi kolai. Ani digozo the tablam di ani iji da ani tuje da beje da ani diche che ni tuje di ani rigwa changwu cha da chamba ge.
Yeah, their group is going to look into the effect of what they call cognitive, sometimes it could be called cognitive or analytic meditation, particularly represented by debate. And for the method, they're going to use several other devices, including EEG. And their hypothesis is that that's having positive impact on one's creativity, critical thinking, etc. So that's what they're going to look into.
Great. Yeah, I also say that, and Ken, I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but there hasn't been a lot of investigations on analytic meditation techniques, I don't think, in the literature. So that could be very interesting.
Yeah, group number 5.
nganzo ruga nga bachi nganzo gi tanda jushi te ani unjungo gumduk nyane che jora go jushi ti dambe ani nganzo jushi dangwe ro de chi ne ani gumduk nyane shembal te te tes lel ha ro chi ta yang digi chi pendo che ro chi kararesna ani nangto mombo chi ani unjungo gi ani gumduk ti yoba ina ani nangto mombo chi shitu sa re sa ro chi che ani nganzo gi jushi ti dambe 아니 간주 최샤디 가르치긴 있으나 아니 운종을 공부 냠네 디게 아니 능도 뭐지 슈그레 세야디 최샤로도 세 아니 탈랑데 단다 아니 데주 가르치 시시에 땅 아니 따제 시시 인가 이토네 아니 루투사레 산스로 쇼스.
Yeah, theirs is group 5. They're interested in looking into the relationship between breathing meditation and the tendency of being so discursive with thoughts, kind of having one's mental state kind of taxed with several discursive, distracted thoughts, which usually is the case for so many of unease and leading into disorders and whatnot. And why they choose from among so many different meditation techniques, why they choose breathing meditation is it is relatively easy, yet at the same time, in terms of its benefit, it kind of almost far extent, it does far more better than others. And their hypothesis is that yes, engaging in breathing meditation will definitely make people calmer and less disturbed by discursive thoughts. And in terms of the methods, they're going to use descriptive as well as experimental methods.
Great.
Number 8.
Hello. From our group, it's quite similar to the group number 3 and 4. Our topic kind of analyzed on the relationship between the Buddhist study, especially the analytic meditation impact on science of emotion. We choose that because it's quite relevant, and we have enough sample in the monastery during the evening debate section. And the method we choose is qualitative and quantitative. Under quantitative, we can use EEG also. And yeah, that's the hypothesis is the how the analytic meditation impact on science of emotion.
Great. Are there any other groups?
Last one, group number 2.
Hello. So our group decided to do experiment on the difference in physiology in a Buddhist monastic institute, where primarily involved in tantric practice, and those who are primarily involved in sutra practice or studies. So the goal is to see the difference in at the physiological level, including heart rate and also blood circulation. And also we want to test the level of cortisol release in those practitioners. And we believe that the tantric ritual, the practice that which involve rituals, have some impact on human physiology, which we believe that which clears the channels, eventually leading the person to have a more better health or well-being. And the reason that we are trying to assess this sort of a thing is that we believe that those who are more involved in tantric practice has the more possibility of getting into some sort of a tukdam state when they pass away. So this is what we planned.
So that, I think, is a very interesting comparison, because here within the Drepung community, or in the Tibetan Buddhist community, you have people, it sounds like, that are doing primarily a sutra-based training versus a tantric-based training. And so that would be a really interesting contrast, because there are a few places in the world where you would have those different types of training with presumably equivalent intensity. So I think that's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So right now we are at the end of this first session. Thank you for going a few minutes past our normal ending period, or normal ending time. Nicole, I think their next task is to just have some time to work on their projects.
No, so we'll take about a 30-minute break, and then you will go to sort of one of 3 different classrooms to give a practice presentation
that's right.
to 2 other groups.
Jenny, showcase around the showcase for them. Somebody, like you this month, she's on Congamel. She's here. That is what comes from just Parukombacha, and she went to Togova. Did you number 2 on the Ruka? That Kangata to Ruka, some Siki, Sisiki, so Zingan, Jama Yongugi, 就是大致新就晓第个嘛这个当些钱啊，当嘛钱啊，当第从到钱因此。
And an important process of giving feedback to others is to tell them some strengths or some good aspects, and then some things that they should work on to make their presentation even better.
这些等到的当些当时的当些当呢，那当如果什么最年代些安天呢，这个开展的教育的可以有的，那如果真的把写的些肯定是的，肯定那样了，那当个念书要不那种那。
So after each presentation, we would like others who are watching the presentation to give some feedback to the group before going on to the next presentation.
当然了，像现在如果这个说这嘛，当些那样的那位搞不了什么的念做些，当然那么做就是没些这个从的了，放假路不行送来他，都现在如果你送过来贴的要这个意思。
And then tomorrow morning, you will have time to make final changes to your presentations.
And then, you should get numbers of packet talking about the river. Or the Paringi Conchata to do the Pave, and then the usual Tangueta, lecture Tangueta, culture, and it denied to any potent about the nice.
And then hopefully tomorrow evening, groups 1 through 6 will give their presentation. And then groups 7, 8, and 9 will give their presentations on Saturday.
And then those in Nasa to Sani Soten Chima needed number super Chiruki or Chiru Kabla and English Susugi in digestion duties every day during Chazan. Let them be since Saba want to done any Susuzuma. Tame Indian da Tamsis Naides. Madu Revala thought Ruka Tambune to go to Sani Chirugi, so then Ninon Sayata, Hamasumbi, Nani Satembe, and so then Matu the Nancy Tibet for the Tambudua, Pagachidu for the Tambudua, Tayat, years.
Pasong, does everybody know where to go after the break?
Sorry, Pasanla is on.
Yes, we all know. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, we will be joining you hopefully in one of the rooms in about 30 minutes.
Tamsi ma niente shwedi sare. Did you can affirm what you get any